And welcome to Front Row the Podcast. We're very excited to have you here. But before we get going, please remember to like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review if you got value from this week's episode. We can't wait to share with you all the industry peers, all the industry experts, all around professional speaking. And we are super excited to welcome you to this week's episodes. Get your notepad ready, get your action steps lined up, and let's tune in to this week's episode. Hello everybody and welcome to this episode of Front Row, the A&S FrontRow Podcast. It is the podcast adjacent to the Speaker Awards and Speaker Summit. We've had incredible series. We've had the Winner Series where I got to interview previous winners of the Speaker Awards, and now I get to work and interview and profile incredible judges. My name is Elliot Kay, if you don't know who I am, and I am the CEO and the co-founder of the Speaker Awards Speaker Summit. And I'm going to quickly interrupt the normal listening and let you know that the Speaker Awards applications are officially open. So if you ever wanted to, enter the awards, find out about the Speaker Awards, go to speakerawards.com and look at everything on there, read it, digest, process, and of course listen to this incredible podcast interview with the amazing Rikki, who is a returning judge, who is our first applicant of the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Speaker Awards as well. And I can't wait to unpack I was going to say you, but that sounds weird. Unpack your journey and talk a little bit about your judging, and then of course beyond that to find out more about you, because what I want to do is get everybody to connect with you after they hear your little podcast interview beyond this. So first things first, Rikki, welcome. Thank you for doing this. So you're coming back for years, this year 2 or year 3 for you?
This is year 2 now. Yeah.
Year 2 as a judge, but year 1 you were also a recipient.
The first year I was, the
recipient of the Lifetime Achievement
recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award, which was really, really honouring. Yeah, great honour.
Thank you. No, one as well as ours. Do you want to just tell us a little bit why you got that award? Tell our people why you got that award.
Well, it's going to be a little bit of a story, this, because I used to be very, very active in Toastmasters. Well, I sort of became a speaker because I was in the life insurance industry, and the life insurance industry was one of the few industries that had lots and lots of conferences, and almost all of them from America and Australia.
Yes. Virtually
no British speakers, and those that were, to be perfectly honest, were quite dull, boring, very technical. They knew their stuff, but they really hadn't learned how to present it. So I decided I needed to get better, and somebody said, "Why don't you join Toastmasters?" I thought, okay. So I joined Toastmasters and then found that they had lots of competitions. So I entered all the competitions and was doing very well in those, became British champion and evaluation champion and all sorts of things. And then I thought, where does this go next in terms of speaking? Because it's helping me to be able to speak, but not helping me step into being a professional speaker. And I was speaking to one particular friend of mine who was a Redcoat Toastmaster as well. And he said, "Well, why don't you join NSA?" I said, "What? National Security?" No. It's a National Speakers Association in America. I said, never heard of that. What is it? So I checked it up on the internet and found out it's this huge, big organization that's been running for nearly 25 years for speakers in the States. There were 6 UK members who were members of it. So I thought, okay, I'll join. And I went around and contacted the 6 as much as I could, and spoke to one who said, "Why aren't you going to the convention?" I said, "The what?" He said, "They have a convention every year." I said, "Oh, right." So I booked a place and off I flew to Minneapolis in 1995 for the first my first speakers convention. I went there as somebody who was an embryonic speaker, was beginning to earn a bit of money from speaking, probably more a trainer than a speaker. I came back a professional speaker. That meeting utterly transformed my life, changed my direction, everything. I just thought, wow, whoa, 2,500 speakers all meeting together, 13 concurrent sessions at a time. I bought so many tapes of ones I couldn't get to. And watching brilliant speakers. I mean, there are people who I'd grown up with. Suddenly I'm sitting on a dinner table with Zig Ziglar, and I'm chatting to. I'm thinking, wow, this is just amazing. And Tony Alessandra and all these people who I grew up, seeing as the great speakers now I'm sitting having lunch with them and having a chat with them at coffee breaks. And I thought, well, we just got to do something like this in the UK. So I spoke to a couple of people, and there was an idea for forming one idea. And then a couple of friends of mine, about a year, 18 months later, Brendan Power, also in the life insurance industry, went to California for a life insurance $1 million roundtable meeting. And while they were there, they decided to go to the San Francisco chapter meeting.
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco chapter meeting is bigger than the PSA in the UK. I mean, it's just, they've got about 300, 400 members just in one state. And it was a brilliant meeting. So Brendan came out and said, whoa, yeah, we've got to do this, got to do this. And that was it. And then suddenly we met a guy called Warren Evans, and he said, was starting to help us put together an association. And then he suddenly said, look, we've got another, somebody else has contacted us because they want to do the same thing. I said, what, really? Who?
Oh, okay.
Well, there's this guy called Rex Warner. So we tried to contact Rex. Turns out he was on a boat because he spends a lot of his time on boats. And he finally got back to us and said, yeah, Rex had sailed a raft across the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
In order to try and, prove that it could be done, and proved it could be done. Not a crazy thing for someone who can't swim to do, but
wow.
But anyway, this was how he did it. He did these exploration trips, made a big thing, got some photographs in National Geographic, got a run of speeches for a year or two out of that, and then went off and did another expedition. That was his style. Very different to the kind of business speaking. So we all got together. I made a phone call. Some friends in Toastmasters. He contacted a few other people, some red coat toast, and we ended up with a nice team of 7 people.
Mm-hmm.
And between us, we put together the PSA as a UK operation, launched on the 30th of January, 1999, with 120 people at our first meeting. And it's grown from there. I think PSA is now about 600-700 members. Tends to be more focused towards newer people coming in and building. I think the established speakers have a tendency to drift off and do their own thing.
Yeah, but, that's amazing.
But that was it. And, I spent about 5 years working there as the president and then as a director until I made a silly decision to change my gender and go off on a totally different direction.
Well, let's not call that silly. You made a life choice, and
it was a life choice, and it was unexpectedly challenging.
Well, I can't imagine because I've never been through it, but so I can pretend to imagine. But yes, it's a big life choice, right, and a big change, and I don't know what came as a result, and we could explore that later on if you want.
Yeah.
And we can discuss some of the challenges that people like yourself face. I think it might worth highlighting if we want to discuss that. It's completely up to you. I'm here to support and highlight you in all your glory.
I think it showed me one lesson that I think I can share with a lot of people on this.
Yes.
I had been basically a sales technology speaker. That had been my background. I spent the whole of the 90s very heavily involved in technology. When I changed gender, the life insurance industry wasn't interested. I even literally had somebody who booked me just to do a free speech for an association. When I told them, I said, I've changed. And he said, oh God, no, cancel.
Really?
Yeah, we're not going to have that. No. Our members couldn't handle that. And I suddenly realized, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought. And I realized that my career as a technology speaker was at an end, and not just, drifting down, falling off a cliff end.
It was an abrupt...
Absolutely stopped dead. Within 6 months, I had no work at all.
Wow.
And I thought, no, not something... I think we're all a bit familiar with that kind of cliff fall now as a result of 2020.
I think as a professional speaker we are. Yeah. Okay, I think that's definitely worth discussing because I think it's important. Because let's come back to it. But I think number one, it was a decision that was made for the members, but not by the members. So that person couldn't have possibly known that you wouldn't have gone down well with the members. So that was a decision maybe they didn't even have a right to make.
Right, probably right.
Right. but also to discuss like such a sharp change in attitude which you experience probably now, like discrimination and things like that, which is unjust. That's not fair. Your content is your content, whether you deliver them as a man or a
Yeah,
woman or a they, right? So that the content's the content. Why should it matter? But the fact is, it does, right? And that's really sad. That's not right. And this is why something in the Speaker Awards, I think you've seen it was we really campaign very hard for inclusion and
yeah,
diversity,
oh,
and we
absolutely.
work very hard. We don't get it all right, but we work really hard on that, and that's at the forefront of everything we do, to the point where we look at a lineup and I'm like, no, there's too many men. There's too many white men, and all of us are aware of that, and we want to make sure that we diversify, and we're always open to feedback. So I'd love to, if you want to discuss that a bit later on. And I'm very happy that we awarded you a Lifetime Achievement Award because of you and your team. There was the Professional Speakers Association, KPSA, and it's still going. Like you say, it's still strong. It does attract newcomers, but equally, it's a home for established people and for people to give back. So there's
Yeah.
a real collaborative. I've been a member. We've partnered with them in the past. And then you moved out, but it doesn't change the contributions you brought to the professional speaking industry, and that's why we felt that you were the one to win the first Lifetime Achievement Award. Maria and I discussed in great depth. She always brings names to the table, and we're like, "Oh, why are they the right person?" And then we had this right conversation, and for you to be the first one is absolutely our honor. And then you were then didn't rest on your laurels. You went like, hey, look, I'm a lifetime achiever. I want to give back. I want to get involved in as a judge, because you're not busy enough, Rikki. And so tell us about that decision. Why did you want to get involved in awards? Because also awards can come with quite a level of skepticism around it, right? So tell us your decision to get involved in the awards.
One of our members of the PSA, Don, his name's come from Don Hales, who
Yeah.
sadly died a few years ago,
Oh no.
was big into awards. He set up the original consumer customer service awards,
Uh-huh.
and he set up a number of others. And he came to us with a proposal while I was on the board of the PSA, with a proposal to try and put together an award program for the
Okay.
PSA. We really looked at it hard, but there was a challenge because most of the board wanted it to be just PSA.
Right.
And I felt that was probably wrong, that we needed to make it open to everybody. Don was going to run it, and we would basically be, co-sponsors. It just wasn't the right time. It didn't work.
Okay.
So I always believed that the idea of Speakers Awards was a great idea. And the whole concept and the way you run it, very similar to the way Don runs it.
Okay.
You pay a small fee to get in that helps to pay and cover it. There is a lot of admin behind it. We knew that.
Yes.
At the same time, because I was still constantly, I still regularly went to Toastmasters.
Okay.
And often when I went, I would be there as a judge.
Okay.
I'd been through lots and lots of competitions, so I knew the experience of going through live competitions and being judged and judging. The PSA then started to put its own speaker factor competition around, which was good because it enabled each chapter to give some level of competition. And now that's been split into two, so we've got emerging and professional, and I've judged some of those.
Right.
So it's not that I came into this new to judging. I'd actually judged levels right up to the finals of Toastmaster international competitions, UK Ireland finals, and I've judged quite a few speaker factor and emerging speaker.
Yeah.
So I quite like the whole idea, and I think it's I think it's an important thing that there is some level of competition, because what I discovered while I was at Toastmasters is that competing ups your game.
Yes, it's true. True.
You take a speech, it's only going to be a 7-minute or 7-minute speech, whatever the limits are for the competition. So you've got to learn to deliver in time. And I'm saying this with my partner, who's a scriptwriter and written a play that's been commissioned, but it has to be 30 minutes. And the tough thing was trying to make it work and be able to tell the story within that time frame. And the same thing applies when you're doing your speech. You've got to be able to make sure you deliver a complete package in 5-7 minutes, whatever the time limit is.
Right.
I've done TED Talks. Well, done an amazingly beneficial thing by saying to people, that's it, 18 minutes
80 minutes maximum. Right.
maximum. And sometimes, the recent London one was only about 13 minutes, I think.
Right.
Um, so, I think the whole discipline of competitions helps to raise the standard of speaking generally.
Yes. True.
It helps the credibility of the individual speaker because you can say, award-winning. That does make a difference. I think when people look and think, okay, there's an award-winning speaker. And I like the fact, like I put award-winning on there. I won the PSA comedy speech competition in 2021, which was quite challenging because that was done online. And I can tell you what, comedy when you're working online is not.
It's not because you can't read the energy like you would a room, right?
Exactly.
Wow. So okay, so you were like you were bought. You love the awards process. You get the important how it validates. It's a competition. How it helps streamline, like you say, putting your best 5 minutes or your best 7 or TEDx categories 8 to 10 minutes, and and making it's literally every second counts. It's and I think that's a shift for a lot of speakers in itself. Having done the judging for a couple of years, I believe you've done TEDx and storytelling, right? And those are the kind of
TEDx and storytelling, yeah.
Yeah, which is I think again where you shine with your storytelling. When we heard you tell that story in 2024 when you did the closing keynote, everybody to standing ovation, which is brilliant. So for anybody entering, just 1 second, everybody watching this, my cleaner's arrived. 2 seconds, Rikki. Let me ask you the question. You can answer it. I'll run and come and do it. This is just what happens on live recording. So tell everybody watching what are the things that they should do when they're entering. And I'll be back in 1 second.
I think it's really, I think I had mixed opinions when looking through. There were 50 entries for the storytelling competition. And some of the time people had just plucked a bit of a speech and dropped it in. Oh, I told the story, I'll put it in. I would recommend to anybody entering the storytelling competition, a little bit different to TEDx, but try and do it from scratch. If you're going to, or if it isn't going to be a live show, think about the fact that you're going to take a piece and it's going to be part of an entry, and make sure you really, really get that story to work, because some of the stories just didn't work at all. They didn't have a point.
So, okay, brilliant. So what didn't work? Let's go into that. What did you feel didn't work? So you've done this for 2 years. What are you seeing that doesn't work for anyone? And I guess this is across the board, but specifically for TEDx and or storytelling.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be a clear story. And I think if you think about storytelling, the whole idea of storytelling, you need to have this sense of there is a conflict. Yeah, the story, the protagonist in the story, and if that's you or whatever, you need to hit a conflict. There's a problem. You've got to overcome that, and as a result of that, the world is different at the end of it, and there is a learning. It needs to be very clearly. You just got to deal with one point in a 5-minute speech. You cannot deal with multiple points. It's got to be one clear point. And the ones that were the winners of the storytelling competition were quite clear. They were often personal stories, personal stories about which they had faced a real challenge and they'd overcome that challenge, and they'd gone on to win, to become successful, to do something which made a difference. And that, I think, is what we look for when we hear a story. We want to see that arc that goes on, that where I've taken you through a problem and on we go. And I use stories all the time. If I do a 45-minute keynote, you can pretty much guarantee there's going to be 5 good stories in that, including a big one at the end. And you've got to look very clearly, what is the message of the story? You don't have to tell people the message. Sometimes it's better to leave the audience to get the message, because it's so obvious from the story what the message is all about.
Right.
I know in America there's a bit more focus on, you've got to have the phrase that pays. So
but that's handy too. Let's not discount that, right?
And I'm not just going to count it, because repetition helps immensely all the time. So getting the story across. But I think, if the story's fairly clear, what you've learned out of it, what the outcome is, how things have changed. I love Lewis Carroll's The Jabberwocky poem. Not going to tell it here.
Go for it.
But
are you allowed to tell it? Is it clean? Is it clean?
Oh, the Jabberwocky is John Gobbledygook.
Okay.
It's all a thing, but it's a story about a young boy going out to fight the great monster, kills the monster, comes back, and everything's all wonderful. But it's done, we're very tongue in cheek.
Okay, got it.
It's a brilliant poem, and I use it because it illustrates the whole 3-act structure of stories, and it illustrates the whole idea the world is under stress because of the threat of the Jabberwocky monster, and off he goes and searches for it, fights it, kills it, brings back the head, and the world is now changed.
Okay.
So it is in the space of a minute, it brilliantly shows and illustrates the whole concept of storytelling, right? So I think if you're going to go for storytelling, you've got to really understand that you're getting it right. And there is a tendency, I listen, some of the books on storytelling are really just about brand positioning. They're not a story that engages the audience, but we also know that when you get a good story, the brain patterns of the person listening mirror the brain pattern of the person telling it. So it's the most effective way to sort of take what I feel and plug it in. Somebody. So they're with me all the way. And there's no question about it. Great storytellers is what great speakers are about. It's the crux. So when I'm studying, I'm looking for a story that engages me and that I feel emotionally connected with by the time it's finished.
Is there anything else that stood up in terms of pacing, tonality, like in terms of the deliverables that from the winning? Because I know, for example, Adele's, which was the winning one, and then the one we're showcasing in the resource section on the website, she kind of flitted. She told the story, but then she would tell the learnings or her dilemma in that moment, and she did that very cleverly.
Yes.
So for you, what else kind of the deliverables that people can look when they're sort of looking to submit it that you see that work?
It's very difficult because you need to be unique and it needs to be your story. I do tell stories which aren't my story.
Yeah.
And I think you can do that. I play with voices if I'm doing, I love poetry. So and another poem that I love, which is a 2-minute one, brilliant story, is the Walrus and the Carpenter.
Okay.
Now there is the moon, the sun, the walrus, the carpenter, and oysters. So I've got 5 voices.
Oh God,
I need to introduce to differentiate those. And I think it's worth, I always think every speaker should try and do some form of drama training.
Okay,
I'm not going to say you've got to do that before you go and get your entry into the next few months.
No, everyone suddenly goes for 3-year training at London.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be 3 years. I'm lucky I live in Hull. I have Hull Truck Theatre here, and Hull Truck Theatre runs lots of regular courses on acting, and they have a regular acting program for older people, as well as for younger people. So if you look around, you'll probably find the smaller theatres rather than the big ones often have a program of acting going on, and getting involved, just going a weekly trip to that. Doing Toastmasters, just starting to develop those short presentations. It's a very different skill. One of the co-directors, co-founders of PSA, Philip Campani, we competed regularly with each other, and Philip managed to get himself to become second in the world championships.
Wow!
And he really mastered the 7-minute speech. Absolutely brilliantly did it. And it wasn't. I struggled with it because I'm much longer speaking. 30 minutes. I'm struggling to keep on time. But we have to work to those times. But I do think if you can take a little bit of drama training of some kind, and I'm looking for longer term. Improving your storytelling by getting involved in creative things like that will help immensely.
Yes.
And
Yeah, but not, I mean, don't do it if it's going to slow your award application.
no,
But just
but
learning those
the
different.
stories that look good. I mean, you can
Yeah.
you remember seeing them as well. They did have great tonality. You went to highs, you went to lows. You were taken on a journey. And that journey comes because you draw people in and they get the sense of the characters and of what's going on and the challenges of one of them was about, I'm trying to remember now from last year's, what one was a runner who had to run with a boat, I think it was, yes. And
Anna Hemmings.
Anna Hemmings, yeah,
Yes.
brilliant story.
It's only because I've watched that on YouTube. I actually don't watch any of the entries to stay completely neutral until it's done. So the only reason I know
Yeah.
Anna's is because I watched something similar on her YouTube channel a while ago. Yeah, she's a great storyteller, and I think she's 3 times highly commended. So I get her frustration that she's like, especially as a gold winning medalist, she's
Yes.
like not quite. She's silver for 3 years in a row.
Well, it's because she came second again. And
I know she must be like, oh. I remember watching her face again and her saying, third time. Like, come on. So for you, so message needs to be clear.
one big mistake there.
Sorry, go on.
One big mistake. A
Yes.
couple of people actually did a sales pitch in the middle of their story.
Oh, not good. Waste of money. I mean, a waste of time.
Yeah, I think, why are you doing that? Why are you promoting your book? Why? No. That's not going to work. Not in a storytelling competition.
Yes.
In your presentation, okay, you might do something like that, but keep it out of your keep it out of an entry. So don't try and promote and push stuff. This is a competition to demonstrate your ability to tell stories. With TEDx, it was different.
Okay.
Because TEDx, we're looking at something that meets the TEDx criteria, which predominantly is this sense of there is a clear idea that needs sharing. The ones that were commended and the ones that were shortlisted were the speeches that actually had that quality to them. There was a great idea worth sharing that you thought, oh, yeah, that's really cool.
Right.
And we're all so familiar with TED Talks now. We've seen so many.
Yeah.
Many of us have done them, as I have. And you know what you have to do to make a TED speech work.
Yeah. It's not just too dissimilar to storytelling a TED Talk. No. So that's why I think you work well with them, because there's a clear message or there's an idea worth spreading.
Yeah.
Right. It needs to be delivered in a way that's connected, that's emotional. The deliverables pacing, right? Using your tonality and intonations and all the bits and bobs, really taking us on a journey. So they're very similar in the respect to what you would look at. The difference is with a TEDx is we allow up to 10 minutes because what we found historically is people can get their idea worth spreading in 5. So we're like, do you know what? That's fair enough. Let's give them more time to do that. Were there any absolute no-nos from the TEDx category that you've seen?
It's difficult to say that. You have to engage the audience really well with a TED Talk. I suppose I do something on my website, building up I'm trying to take what can we learn from TED Talks.
Yeah.
And I think people don't realize that there have been 4,000 actual TED Talks. 50,000 TEDx talks have now been delivered and are available. That's a huge. And most of those people delivering those talks are not professional speakers. In fact,
very few are.
Professional speakers often do very badly.
Yeah,
in a TED Talk.
Yeah.
And again, I suppose it's about often because you've got 10 minutes. It's easy to think, well, I can put more ideas in. No, one
good, clear idea.
And that's what makes a TEDx talk work really well. If you look at the ones that have, Simon Sinek and people like that, the people who've got 50 million views on their TEDx. It's one simple talk,
Yeah.
it's one simple message. Focus on why. It's why creativity is killing schools.
Mobility.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just look how that has transformed everything with for Brené Brown.
Yeah.
One simple idea, and you come away from it. And I think this is the big problem about speaking generally, is that people put way too much content into a speech, or they try to put too much in. And when somebody puts a list, here are my top 10 tips, no,
Too many.
just
Yeah,
not
too
gonna
many.
work.
I think part of that is people feel a need to overload with information. And the fact is, we have too much information now.
Yeah.
We need implementation. We need clear strategies or clear steps. But again, I think in the desire to add value, people overpack. And you're right. We could probably benefit from one clear thing. That's it. One thing, which is what TEDx is really, or TEDs are really good at. One idea we're spreading, and you deconstruct, you reconstruct, and then you inspire. And I think those are some of the good TEDx talks. I mean, I work with a TEDx up in Manchester as a coach, so I get to see a lot of these kind of transform and evolve from concept to evolution. And the ones that went down really well last year, the ones that are the easiest and simplest to follow, but yet had the most connectivity and emotional layering built in, so the audience really kind of went with them on a journey and were like, yes. There was this guy called Sam Squire, and he ended his TED talk with giving everyone a string and crossing arms. So he was all about neat young people, unemployable people.
Yeah.
So he talked a lot about that, and he used a whole reframe around the neat. Instead of it standing for this, it stands for this. I won't give too much away in case people go watch it. And then he took everyone on this amazing journey, and in the end, he asked everyone to reach underneath their seat and grab this piece of string and to hold. And he goes, see how easy it is to connect everyone. And then he asked everyone to tie it around their finger to remind them to reach out to one young person that day. Here's something really interesting. So he did that, went down really well. Gareth Southgate watched it and then invited him to, they had a day with his team about all of these things. So it's so true that when something connects, it really lands.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key thing. What we're looking for as entries of the Speaker Awards, right, is that. And I think, the ones that are likely to win are the ones that have all the ingredients we spoke about, right?
Well, I think, as you were saying that, it just reminded me, this wasn't so much with the Speakers Awards, but with some other competitions I've been. I did a PSA emerging speaker competition I judged. And what was interesting was the difference between those who really connected with the audience and those who performed.
Right.
And it was like they were on a stage performing, and it was the fourth wall. Okay, I've trained as an actor, so I know how you do that and how different it is to perform to a fourth wall and to actually engage and go past the wall to actually engage with the audience. And it was as if people were frightened to make eye contact with the audience.
Right.
Now, I know some of this is all being done on video, so sometimes, and I'm terrible. I'm just realised I'm not looking at the camera. I'm tending to look at you. So I've still got
That's okay. We'll forgive you. We'll forgive you.
Yeah, but the fact is that if you're going to do your presentation, you've got to think about, I'm going to work. If you're going to record it, look at the camera. You don't have to look at it all the time. You could look around as if you've got an audience, but make sure that every so often you're looking back at the camera so that you're looking at the person who's actually watching it. Sometimes, I remember I did a speech once. I went for Xerox, and they asked me to do something in a theatre in a big exhibition area. So I got there to do my presentation, and there were 2 people in the audience, which could seat 200.
Oh, gosh.
And I said, not got very many people in at the moment, but I was doing 3 or 4 speeches, and this particular one was just, happened to be so much else going on, there was nobody there. but we did want to film this one. So I had to deliver the whole speech as if there was a full audience and looking at the camera as well. And they were totally impressed. They thought I did brilliantly. It felt as if there was a whole audience full of people. That's what you need to come across, like you're working with an audience.
Yeah, regardless of the size.
So
But when I was training, I always had the always deliver to 1,000 people audience, the
yeah,
energy, the power, the strength. Even if you're not in volume, always in your mind, be
yeah,
big, be bigger, right? And if you are doing 1,000 audience, go to 5,000, right? I
yes.
mean, you and I know the bigger the audience, the less you see because you just got spotlights on you and lights. You can't actually see
So
the
you're up on
audience.
screen, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's where demanding a response becomes really important because then you're checking they're still with you and you're not losing them. But that comes with experience and stuff like that. So, what are you looking forward for the 5 year anniversary, 2026, your third year judging, your hat trick? What are you looking forward to more than anything this year, the Speaker Awards?
I'm looking for some. I'm looking for some stories that move. Okay,
Okay.
I want to see people that are beginning to see storytelling as the most important part of being a good, great speaker because it is, and I think we're beginning to learn that. It's interesting. You know, 5 years ago, people really weren't talking about storytelling
Hmm.
much. There were very few people actually delivering talks about it. There's been a flood of books and all sorts of people, yeah, as we're beginning to understand the power of storytelling and how important it is. So, take your best story. If your entry for this, I want to see people take their best story, their keynote story, their signature story. Let's hear it. I know people sometimes worry that people are going to copy your story. That if your story is about you and about your path and about your journey and about what you have learned, that journey
Oh, I think we lost you a bit there, Ricky.
done that.
There we go. You're back. Go
Okay.
on. That last line again.
Yeah. So if people, you've got that great story that actually moves people. It's your signature story. Nobody's going to copy a
Yeah.
signature story if it really is about your life. And it becomes something that it's unique.
Hmm.
It's personal. And so that's what I'm looking for. I want to see unique personal stories about your challenge that other people can look at and think, God, that really helps me.
Yes.
Yeah. Is this because I don't think people realize how often, I mean, I can name a few speeches. There are not very many speeches I remembered really well, but there are some speeches back 30 years ago
Wow.
that changed the course of my life in the course
And
of
they all
this.
had a story.
And I've had feedback from some of my speeches where people say, "Oh, saw your speech 10 years ago, totally changed my life." And I think, wow,
That's pretty amazing.
that's the greatest accolade that any speaker can get is that I delivered a speech that someone said, "Yeah, okay, I heard that speech," and the following day I took a different course. So
That's the best, yeah, you can get. And I think that's why most people speak,
yeah,
is to kind of have that kind of impact, right? Even, and I think people underestimate the fact that you may never ever know. And I think a lot of
no,
people like to know, and it's nice to know, but you may never know, right? Until one day, maybe. But you know what? If you're truly in this profession to uplift, to inspire, to empower, then you've also got to let go of knowing and just, trust in yourself. And maybe one day you'll get that kind of 10-year later, you changed my life. That's nice. And I think that's a big part. I think a lot of speakers, when they don't get that, they feel somehow they're not doing the job right. And it's important to remind everyone that's not the case. So
yeah,
that's really good. So exciting. Anything else to add before we wrap up this section?
no, I think it's speakers are experts in
Mm,
whatever field that you've come in, and I think that's what's got to come across very clearly. It's very easy to think, oh, I'm going to go in there and make a load of money being a speaker. Yeah, I've seen some great, and then I start seeing just you know marginally repeated stories. Suddenly,
mm.
I hear something, I think, oh, that's Zig Ziglar. Oh, Norman Vincent Peale. Oh, there we go. There's J. Douglas Edwards. And okay, they're from a long time ago, and people have forgotten them. But yeah, they're still just repeat stories. You've got to take your speech has got to come from your life path,
Mm.
which is why I think it's actually tougher for young people to become top speakers, because they haven't had that life path of lessons learnt. And there's a
Yes.
tendency, therefore, just to copy. Yeah, let's copy Tony Robbins. And
Yes.
nobody can copy Tony Robbins.
No,
But
I've seen
people
people try really badly, and I've seen them try to keep up the energy that he has, and they just burn out within minutes of being on stage. And then they realize how hard it really is to do what he does. So yeah, I think it's finding the
for
originality.
13 hours.
Yeah, 13 hours a day sometimes. I think he's cut back a bit now, hasn't he? But either way, he's done it for a long time. So this is really exciting. So if you've been listening this far, if you got this far, remember the speakawards.com is where you can go find out all the different categories. We've talked about storytelling TEDx, but of course there's other categories there as well. We've introduced 2 new categories. I don't know if you knew that, Rikki. We've introduced motivational speaker and host of the year award. So for those who host events, we've introduced those as well. And one's replaced virtual speaker that we used to do, because we're seeing a downward trend on virtual speaking. So we changed that. But yeah, speakawards.com. And there's also a resource page which allows you to watch previous winning entries and a whole bunch of things. Links to this podcast are on there, including the winner series. So if you're listening and you're checking in now, it's the speakawards.com. And I'm interviewing Rikki, a former Lifetime Achiever, well, not former, still a Lifetime Achiever awardee in the Hall of Fame as well, a Hall of Famer, who works day in, day out with professional speakers as well, founder of the Professional Speaker Association. Since then, they've moved in a different direction, which we'll start to explore shortly. So we will move on now. So that's all been about the awards and the judging process and what Rikki's seen and learned, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the beautiful, I should add there as well. You don't just do this, right? There's some other you've got some other attributes that worth mentioning when you filled in the form. You listed a whole bunch. Besides being a Lifetime Achievement Award, besides winning comedy in 2022, what else have you done? Share with us. This is your chance, your platform.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing I did was obviously to change my gender.
Yes.
Not long after we set the PSA up. And that's something I've been with me all my life. I'd fought it, suppressed it, felt that if I came out or if anybody found out, it would be the end of my career. And I kept away from any possible connection with the whole LGBT community because it terrified me when I saw the way in which, particularly, but bear in mind, I grew up as a teenager in a world where it was, you could go to prison,
right,
for being gay.
Yes.
It changed in 1967, but that actually increased the number of people who got arrested. Stupidly decriminalized it, but then it meant that the rules on decriminalization were so strict that people didn't realize it was still very easy to commit a crime. By the time we got to 1999, things were starting to change. The laws were starting to change. And I got to the point of thinking a number of things happened. A relationship broke up, a bit of a challenge with the tax in the revenue. And I had to sort of make a decision about where am I going with my life.
Yeah.
And it reached a point I thought, if I don't deal with this now, I'm going to probably regret it. So I decided to come out. I just decided to I came out at a big event. A big client was shutting down their projects and the work I did. And it was a final sort of dinner dance. And I turned up in drag. Big sparkly, lots of big hair. And I was out. That's one of the things, once that genie's out of the bottle, you can't put that one back in again.
Yes.
If you're out, you're out.
Yes.
So I thought, right, well, let's do it. And then that was when I then realized it really was going to be a lot tougher. People would not hire me because I was transgender. And I was actually told quite clearly, you're not getting hired because you're transgender. The other clients just can't. It's too big a risk. So it doesn't matter what if it doesn't go well, then,
Is this as a speaker or your other stuff? Or just as a speaker?
This is a speaker.
Okay.
So
So you're seeing this kind of wing of discrimination unfold in front of you.
yeah, I didn't really understand it or know about it then. And I sat back and thought, well, if people won't book me because I'm transgender, what would I need to do so they would book me? And the issue was, well, the whole Equality Act was just unfolding. Everything was becoming, yeah, it was a big part of the Labour Party's
Yeah.
manifesto. Everything wanted to change. And I've always been a little bit interested in politics anyway. So I thought, right. So I found myself a place at Hull University. I'd come up to Hull because my mother was born here, and I just needed to get away from where I was and really start afresh. It was a real complete new start to my life. So I went to university
Okay.
and did a master's degree in gender.
Okay.
As I came out of that, all of a sudden there was opportunities. Social enterprise was becoming a big thing. So set up a social enterprise. I got involved on the city. There was loads of work going on to try and engage people at various different levels with the not just politics, but actually having businesses and community. And
Yeah.
I just suddenly found myself drawn into the whole area, learning about diversity, working with Hull City Council,
Yeah.
and my whole shift from sales and technology shifted to diversity.
Okay.
And so for the next 10 years, that was the direction I went. Got lots of funding, so started,
Oh, wow.
and wasn't as lucrative
Hmm.
from a speaking perspective as I had been. The stages were smaller
Okay.
because diversity was a growing thing, but it was regular. It
Okay.
was a steady flow and lots of, and I was dealing with something I was passionate about. And I think that's probably one of the things I learned about speaking is that ultimately you need to deal with something that you are passionate about. If you're not
Hmm.
passionate about your topic, you will eventually get bored with it
All burnt out.
because you're going to deliver the same speech over and over and over again for years,
Right.
which is either it evolves. Laws change,
Yes.
people change, things modify. Um, been a bit tough on this area for the last couple of years due to some very anti-trans politics.
Yeah.
But so that's been one area. The other area has been as I've now got quite a lot older. I'm finding myself drawn more to coaching people rather than just doing the speaking, particularly as the whole diversity thing has become a little bit that it got very negatively trounced. Right-wing politics have looked at that as it's all woke, it's all rubbish. It seems to be turning around. I think we've gone through the worst and things are turning back. But at the same time, I suddenly look at and I see a guy like Zach Polanski appear out of
Oh, yeah.
nowhere, and I know he's a politician.
Hmm.
He's also a speaker.
Yeah.
And he is a speaker so passionate about his beliefs that he isn't just changing the face of politics in the UK. Actually, other countries all around the world have been so inspired by what he's doing here. It's changing the whole green movement, and yeah, it's a political area which I'm drawn to because
Okay.
it's very pro diversity, pro, planetary benefit. And so I'm watching suddenly, very well. I mean, my speech from 2 years ago at your
Yeah.
event was, how to change the world.
Yeah.
And I see a
One
guy get
speech
up
at a
and I
time.
think this guy actually is really changing the world one speech at a time. He's getting out there, delivering speeches that scare the other politicians to death because he's speaking so strongly from the heart. And I'm thinking,
Mm.
whoa. So I'm looking more and more now at how do I help speakers to be able to deliver speeches that
Like
literally
that.
can change the world.
That is, and very much needed, right? I mean, regardless of where you sit on the spectrum of politics, we just need great leaders. We need strong messages. We need positivity without being deluded positivity. But,
Yeah,
and I think there's definitely a call for it, which is why we're seeing the Zacks and the Mandanis, rise
yeah,
as well, right? Whether you agree with them or not is another matter. And this is not about politics, and we're very clear. But that's why there is a gap that they're filling because they're bringing something different in a different way. And in your experience, Rikki, did you find when you did kind of start doing the diversity talks that there was a genuine desire in these companies, or they were tick boxes like, let's bring Rikki in because it ticks a box? What did you find a balance of the two? I'm just intrigued how you found that
at the
path.
beginning, it was the law was changing.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is the law can change, and then public attitude change comes probably a decade behind it.
Yes.
It takes a long time for it, in exactly the same way when decriminalized LGBT issues, and then we hit the 1980s. It was 1967.
Yeah.
It became legal to be gay, but then we hit 1980 with that huge challenge of AIDS, which seriously impacted it. But then as we went into the 90s and noughties, we began to embrace the idea that it's okay to be gay. And we've reached the point now where that's the situation. I was very interested looking at the TEDx. Like London was part of this share thing around the world where they're trying to find great TEDx speakers, and one speaker from each country event was going to now go to Vancouver to the TEDx conference.
Oh, wow.
They've just released the 10 speeches from the London event. And I looked down and I thought, whoa, that's interesting. Out of 10 speakers, 2 men.
Really? That's a good shift.
That was a big shift. Was it an overshift? I think probably some people might think so. Very few white people.
Cool.
Only about 2, I think. I thought, whoa. Maybe a little bit more. It was very heavy, diverse. Looking at it, I thought, wow, that's a really, really diverse lineup that they put in there. Seriously diverse. And I know that there are going to be some who will not like that because it was in the UK and think, well, this is an international thing. But it shows what's happening in the fact that diverse voices are now becoming mainstream. And I think we still haven't got there. I mean, quite a few members of the PSA, friends of mine, are now saying I'm actually on the autistic spectrum.
Okay.
I discovered I'm ADHD. I have been all my life. Didn't realize it. Thought ADHD was all about hyperactivity. Yeah, sometimes it's just in the head.
Yes.
And I realized the challenges that's caused for me. So increasingly, we're now beginning to start looking and wanting to understand how do we engage with people. And maybe there is no normal.
I don't think there ever was. I think how you were made or confined to normality made you, or attempted to make you normal. I think normal is also according to where you belong or don't belong, right? So, if it's normal to think and behave this way, it's not normal to behave and think in a different group or in a different culture, in a different set of society, right? While some set of society, it's normal to only see middle-aged white men on TV and they think that's normal, then it's abnormal not. Well, we're so used to inclusivity that to see an all-white lineup, we're like, that's not normal anymore.
Yes.
So I think it is dependent on where you are, where you belong, your beliefs and stuff. I do think you're right. I do think that throughout history, people have been ADHD or, on the spectrum and have just been labeled differently and therefore ridiculed and kicked out for whatever reason, or been made to fit in, which is highly anxiety inducing for someone in that space to suddenly have to think, behave and act normal, whatever normal is. So yes, but maybe normality is just shifting and being the whole you're not normal is okay. Like, I'm not normal. I mean, it's funny because I'm dyslexic, but I don't consider myself neurodiverse. And so now everyone keeps telling me I'm neurodiverse because I'm dyslexic. And I'm like, no, I'm just dyslexic. I really don't think I'm neurodiverse. And I don't need to feel like I'm neurodiverse. It's not going to give me anything by suddenly going, I'm neurodiverse. I'm just dyslexic, So it's quite an interesting shift in conversation and it's all good. It's all very positive. So in that, as we're heading that way, I don't know about you, but in my household, my kitchen table is the center of creativity, vision, and discussions of what we want to buy, what we don't want to buy. The kids do their drawings on them. Uh, so metaphorically, it's kind of like the hub of visionary and creativity. In your case, what's even metaphorically, what's on your kitchen table?
Right, our kitchen's very small, so we tend to ours tends to be in our sitting room.
Okay,
Um, Jamie and I have like one bedroom's their office and mine's the dining room. But
right.
um, I what our focus is around creativity quite a lot.
Okay,
Jamie's a writer.
okay,
Um, hadn't pursued it when they were younger because they got married, had kids, and that stopped
okay.
it. But um, they they've they became disabled and as a result weren't able to continue working, and as a consequence of what that started getting back into writing.
Okay.
It's a challenging world,
Yeah.
trying to get publishers and things like that, but s- uh, particularly for novels, because there's no good self-publishing if you can't get it there. But Jamie has a real talent of a talent for dialogue. So she basically put in a commission, entered a competition for a commission for a local theatre and won. And that's going to be
Wow.
performed in July, but it's a great opportunity that starts. And now they're working more and more on that. Now, I have a big passion about Shakespeare because of my
Oh, wow.
background. I have some thoughts about Shakespeare and his whether he was gay, and some of the
Mm,
connections around that. So we have quite a lot of creativity and creative thought around Jamie's stories and my stories, and we're looking at things, and we do our own thing, but we come
yes, of
together,
course.
and Jamie will hear conversations I'm having saying, You're not giving people a chance to listen." So we help each other. Increasingly, I do more and more stuff online. I was interested. You said that the virtual speaking is dropping.
Yeah.
I have noticed that, which is a great shame because I think it's such a
Think I was listening to quite a few podcasts of that. I think people are genuinely correct because also the explosion of AI and for the first time in history, the internet's plateaued, like in terms of upload content. There's so much content out there that people are craving connection. They want to be in the room. They want to feel and, get, like, I don't mean literally touch, but be in a room where, people are together. And I think that's why virtual's declining. There's a need for human interaction,
mm,
especially now since the explosion of AI. I think there's data that proves that as well, hence virtual dropping.
that's going to be interesting.
Mm.
Um,
Because also, if you think about it, right, there's already is that video genuine? Is it not? Is it you? Is it AI? Right? There's a lot of that going on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so at least if you're in the room, there's no doubt that unless you've got the technology to beam in, it's them. You can see, feel, smell, touch, be spat on, hopefully not by the speaker. Right. And I think there's a real desire, need for that now, hence virtual dropping.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I think people are less likely to stay engaged. When the COVID thing started, Steve Bustin, who was president of the PSA at the time, was suddenly faced with a real challenge
Mm.
with what they did with the convention in 2020. And the decision was made that the way things looked, um, they couldn't gamble on the thing on it being sorted
Live.
by the
Yeah.
end of the year. So he said, right, we'll do it online. And that particular convention in 2020 was my first experience of a big online event, full day event. It was actually supposed to be just the weekend. It turned out to be a whole week,
Wow.
and it was. done so well.
Yeah.
I felt as if I was actually at the event.
Brilliant.
And little things that worked very well. And you talking about connection. What happened was they used I can't remember the name of the platform now, but what happened was that when there was a break, you could hit a button and say network, and it would
Mm.
randomly throw you with someone that you may or may not know for 5 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's
And
so
you could
cool.
extend that for another 5 minutes if you wanted to, or you could hit another one and say, okay, great, next one. And so during the breaks, you could actually randomly network with 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, and then you're back into the session. So there was a lot of it just the way it worked was absolutely brilliant. I've not attended any other online things that have done the same thing. There's been way too much of let's just push information at you.
Yeah.
That and I think what happened was engagement. I do think people struggle with being
Hmm.
on Zoom.
Yeah.
Most people don't know that you can remove self view.
Yeah.
And they don't like watching themselves and seeing themselves. I didn't. I hated it. I got used to seeing myself on video now, so it doesn't worry me so much. But and I'm probably doing a Zoom meeting, 2 or 3 times a week. So, but I do understand that there is a problem with. I think one of the other things that I was picking up is that people are saying because more and more people are now working from home for part of the
Mm.
time, much more flexible working and demanding that that's the case.
Yeah.
The organizations are wanting to try and make sure they bring people together for meetings, but also they're tending to use internal speakers rather than booking speakers a bit more. Um,
Keeper.
yeah, but
Right.
unfortunately they're not so good because they don't spend the time learning how to speak. So that's part of where I'm looking at sort of putting some attention to try and help people who are not
Internal
professional
speakers.
speakers actually become better, because I think what we're seeing is more and more people having to be good at speaking because there are more and more meetings.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. There's meetings, there's Zoom calls with clients, there's pitching, right?
yeah,
There's even hosting meetings. I remember years ago, someone paid me to help him host meetings because he just felt he was flat and boring, which he probably was if he felt it. It's probably true.
yeah,
So I think, again, speaking so wide now, and there's an expectancy to be able to do it. Well, a lot of people don't do it very well. You made me smile when I read the answers to your questions. And, I do a webinar where I go from 1 to 10, where are you? And people put themselves on, 5 or 6 for most of the categories. And I ask, how's your delivery? And everybody put between 8 and 10. And you're like, no, I've judged enough competitions and
they
I've
were
seen enough
not.
speakers that are not that. But people always think they're better than they are as well. So that really made me smile when I read that answer. Um, just before we kind of start to, we're not quite wrapping up, but we're getting there. We're getting there. You've given so much value. You've given so much insight. What would you say that we should be talking about that we're not talking about? What would you say we need to discuss more?
How do you mean?
It can be anything in your life. Like, what is it that should be at the forefront of a conversation in our everyday life? It could be in the speaking world that you feel needs to be brought to light. I ask all our interviewees this, and you can go anywhere you want with it. Let's try and keep it clean, though. I'm not saying you wouldn't, but
No,
just,
no, no.
and if it's political, I might not respond, but you say what you need to
Yeah,
say.
okay. I'm getting drawn back into politics again at the moment. I've been a Liberal Democrat all my life,
Hmm.
and I'm really disappointed that the Liberal Democrats have got, yeah, things shifted. They've got, lots of members in Parliament. I really don't like what happens there. I absolutely do not like it. Um, and I think people have got utterly and completely disillusioned with
Correct.
politics, and they look at all
Yes.
the parties, and one comes in and they're replaces by another one, and do exactly the same thing.
Correct.
And I think everybody's looking at it and thinking, "God, dear, it just isn't getting fixed." It's like, yeah, everybody comes in, and it feels to me like they're, just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah.
It isn't actually going to
Same
stop
stuff,
us.
different smell, right?
Yeah. And then along, yeah, I've always been probably, green, towards green politics. Voted for them a few times, particularly in 1989 when it was a big shift, and then they sort of went into the background. But I think my time in work, the time when I was working with Gender Shift, the social enterprise I built up, it wasn't just about gender diversity. It was about getting a sense of belonging and getting, and fairness. And if you
Yes.
look at the whole equality agenda is about fairness, and it's about creating a fairer society. And
Hmm.
frankly, right now, it is not a very fair society in any way.
Yeah.
So I want to see more fairness, more sharing, more people helping each other, and let's stop this divisive battle that seems to be going on, where everybody wants to rip everybody to pieces and let's chuck everybody out. And how's that going to help?
Yeah.
Our population is declining anyway, simply because the birth rate is fallen below the
Yeah.
death rate. So we're getting older and less people, and that potentially a huge problem because we don't have the young energy unless we have migrants coming into the country to because people often, people are still leaving this country and they go off.
Yeah.
We have a global culture where people move around a lot. So I think we need to be looking at how do we make our world fairer. It is not okay that one or two people can make billions um, every minute, every day. I mean, I just
Yeah.
look at the amount of money that people are making in America out of this war in Iran is just I look at it and think why are we doing this?
Mm.
So I must admit I'm maybe that's my age. I'm looking and thinking we have got to be doing something.
And in your mind, what would that be? If you had a magic wand, what would it be?
I think more than anything else, I think we should be trying to help every single person find their true path, find out what it is that they are really, really good at, um, and actually rewarding people for being really good at what they do. I find it very horrible that somebody is passionate about being a nurse and is paid so little for doing it. I've got
Yeah.
health problems now, and I really appreciate the work that they do. But then I've done some work with with the health authorities, and I did some with Macmillan nurses. These
Yeah.
people have got master's degrees, and they're being paid at a level that you think, well, why are they getting treated
Like
barely
this.
above a porter in
Yeah.
terms of salary in the NHS when they've spent their entire life working with people at end of life care. And I think all the way around, I want to see people talking about it, speaking about it, people being inspired by people like Zach Polanski to start to make changes in the world. And that's been my strong belief all the time that
Yeah.
as speakers, we're there to change. Okay, there are going to be people who want to promote agendas that I don't agree with. Fine. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I will more than happily debate those
Yeah.
with them.
Absolutely. I think adding to that, I mean, there has to be a shift in acceptance, right? I think that we truly, and I mean truly, have to accept people for who they are and what they believe in a way that's constructive, not destructive. And I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
polarization, and there's a lot of you on this side or that side. And and if we're not, if sides aren't speaking together, then that split's just going to widen. That gap's going to get bigger, because like you say, because like I mentioned as well, you're only going to end up in the vacuum you end up in. And unless you're going to reach out and discuss and go, well, like you said, I'll debate them, we'll discuss it. But if you're shut down because
Oh,
they're this, then that's not going to help either. Even if you perceive yourself to be on the green side, on the right side, whatever side you think is the right side, if you're not listening to the other side, there's never going to be a bridge built. There's never going to be a shift. We're just going to carry on with this big polarization, this big gap. So just adding to everything you say, I think acceptance of each other and the willingness to listen, even if we don't agree, has to come into it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why I do like at times listening to some of the podcasts that do challenge those people,
Yeah.
and allow them to just speak it out. Even they'll even say, the host might go, I don't really agree with anything you stand for, but I thought it's important we discuss it. And if that person's willing to go on and discuss it, I think that's great. That's what we need. They're saying, I don't agree, I don't agree. And maybe by the end of it, they won't agree. But at least they've had a conversation and come to a informed discussion why they don't
Yeah.
agree versus headline or snippets of something on social media. And that's it. I don't agree. Right. So I think that's an important element to what you're saying. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you look at, I mean, I was reading something recently. Jamie's grandson is very young, and is very quick, 18 months, nearly 2 years old. Been using iPad and phones and TV screens all his life.
18 months.
You know, quickest way to quiet a child down? Oh, just stick your iPad on the cot.
No.
And it's happening
More and more.
everywhere, more and more and more. You know, and because parents who are on the phone all the time, you know,
Yeah.
and that's just because the way the culture is. Everybody talks to each other via phone more
Yeah.
than it's a. And I met Jamie, who's a counsellor, and I know that they were telling me that when this is just 10, 15 years ago, sometimes dealing with kids at school, because she worked in schools with back to the NEETs kids,
Yes.
who were really struggling, and sometimes they would sit and they couldn't talk. They couldn't actually have the conversation, so they would text.
Oh,
So
gosh.
sitting in the same room, the only way they could communicate was to actually text, and the text went back. And so
That's really sad.
communication is taking place, but it's very short. It's and that's a challenge we've got to deal with, isn't it? Because we've got a whole generation of kids growing up where everything is 90-second TikTok.
Well,
videos.
this is it. Yeah, I listened. I suggest everyone listens to it, and I think we'll put it in the notes. There was a really good Diary of CEO with Stephen Bartlett, where he interviewed the author of Anxious Generation and another psychologist, and they talked about how short form is rotting brains and how bad it is, and so much so whether you love him or hate him. Elon Musk has even come out and said short form video is the worst, and the more they looked into the science of it, so true. So, like, I mean, my children only get an hour of the weekend on their iPad or Switch, right? We've cut them away from certain programs that they don't go on YouTube. And actually, as we're recording this, last week there was a verdict against Meta and Google when it comes down to creating platforms that are addictive. Of course, it's going to be appealed, but this girl that basically it's all based on, since she was 6, she's been on her phone. So, of course, she's had mental health issues and connection issues and depression issues because your brain's consistently getting this instant shot of dopamine.
Dopamine hits.
And you don't have to work hard for it. You don't have to think. You don't have to. So, of course, the only way is down. So I do think there needs to be a fundamental shift. I don't know if restricting them at 16 is the answer, although it's a step towards. Or it's better, boundaries by parents, better self-esteem, getting them out, riding their bike, playing in the park, right? When finding other ways to entertain themselves besides giving them an iPad and or a phone. We've become very alert to all of this, especially my son, who I do think is ADHD, who's incredibly clever and smart. He's only 6, so we're very careful. And I'm not saying we're getting it right, but I do think that's a big factor moving forwards, like you say. The digital generation, the AI generation now. I think it's going to be a very interesting world we're going to be living in over the next few years. And I just hope that this can end in a positive and there is a happy ending.
We've got to get the balance of this right. I mean, I've mentioned before we started this that I've my web platform has a whole bunch of tools built into it. So we're no longer looking at a website. I've got a website and I can actually talk to it and it will, edit from talking. I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty amazing. I've got the email system. There's campaigns I can build in. I can put courses on there. I've got Zoom connection into it. Everything is all built in and automatically then brings it back to the contact record, so that if somebody books a call, it's automatically in their contact record. Now
Yes.
I've got Chat GPT, or I've got custom GPTs I can build in that will enable me to put my information in as the base training data for effectively an AI. So if somebody comes in and chats on there, they're talking to me. The
Yeah.
information that they get will be in my voice, in the way that I would talk to me. And if it can't answer what they want from that conversation, then the GPT will say, "Let me arrange a call with Rikki," and then it can become live. But it means that people, rather than filling in a form, rather than having to read through lots of blog posts, they can actually have a conversation and find what they want.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing we can use this AI in order to enable people to get to the information they want much more
Yeah.
quickly, have the conversation, and then we can then move over to having a personal one-to-one, or to booking me to do a talk, or whatever. And I think we've got to learn. We've got this huge new technology coming. You probably don't know, but I've written 2 books in the past. One was about sales, sell your way to success, and the second one was the ABC of the World Wide Web
Oh, right.
in 1998.
Wow.
I was looking through my book a couple of days ago. Here we go. The ABC of the World
Yeah,
Wide
there
Web.
you go.
No longer available. But little things like, it had a CD in the back
Oh,
with
wow.
products. And I'm looking through, no mention of Google, because
Gosh.
Google didn't exist.
Yes.
It was Alta Vista.
Wow. And it was the year that Arsenal won the double. There we
Oh, yes, I
go.
remember that. Not that I'm a football fan, but I do actually recall that. But the point, I looked at that, I thought, my God. I mean, it's okay, it's 25 years ago, but the world has changed
So much.
since that. I mean, and now we're literally just, I mean, we're more than a couple of years into AI, because AI has been around much
For a
longer,
very
but
time, yeah.
people weren't aware of it. Yeah, we are only just beginning to see what AI can do. The potential is terrifying,
Yes.
or not. And I have regular conversations with ChatGPT and Gemini in
Okay.
the evening on different topics, because it's really great. I'm just feeling a little bit awake, and I think, okay, I want to have a chat about Shakespeare, and I can have that chat, and I can ask questions.
Okay.
Things come back, or I can ask questions. And I asked one question. I said, from what you know with all your data, where do you see the world in 25 or 50 years' time?
What was the answer?
ChatGPT said, there are 2 possibilities of where this is all going to go. One was literally one utopian, one dystopian. And I just thought, whoa. And so we got into quite a long conversation about the possibilities that if AI remains in the hands of a small number of very powerful
5.
people, it will be used to enslave. And we will lose track of what's going on. And when you look at all the ways in which AI can and will be utilized, the whole idea of digital data, we're battling now about whether we have individual data trust, because the possibilities of universal basic income rely on us, everybody being identified, everybody has their single data card. But once that's there, what can people do once they have the power to be able to manipulate? So, and on the other side, it actually shows the huge power and ability to be able to empower people, and and we have to make some decisions as a world
Yeah.
in how we're going to allow. And I think they're going to argue about this. They're not going to want controls put on. But it's like we had to do the same with biological developments Could you clone a human being? We decided no. We should not allow development to go to the point where we can actually start to do that, because its potential is wrong. And I think we've got to probably look at AI in the same way. I say, how far does this go?
Yeah. I think, look, again, I'm not unplugging Stephen Bartlett's story, but there's another really good one with a AI whistleblower.
Yeah.
And she's written a book that compares the top 5 to imperialism and why they're acting like emperors. Again, really worthwhile if you want to see the other side. Because also there's the element of we're only getting the AI that they're willing to show us. There's a whole level that we don't even probably know about that isn't available to the likes of you and me, as special as we are, right? So I think there's a lot. There's really interesting. I think that's worth exploring. Again, we'll probably tag that episode because it's worth being educated, making an informed decision about it, because it's here to stay. Is it going to be, they said that YouTube will destroy mainstream media. It didn't quite destroy, but it gave other people a platform.
Well, I have noticed, and that's is from some of the research and also from conversations with younger people. These kids are millennials.
Yeah.
And we're seeing with Gen X, they're just not watching TV.
No, they're not. TikTok, YouTube, short form.
It's all TikTok, it's all YouTube, exactly.
Which is really scary.
And I'll be honest, the other day I was looking at the TV and thinking, God, this is. I'd probably rather go on YouTube, because actually on YouTube I can define and decide what it is I watch, and I can
how long?
What I now got to, but now that I've got this problem, that can I determine what is real and what is not.
Right.
And I've started seeing loads and loads of stuff about the war in Ukraine. And then I started thinking, well, where's this information coming from? How come the information I'm seeing here isn't turning up in a BBC News or in the... And then I started looking and thinking, it's because it's actually been generated. It's AI generated. So
Exactly.
So there is this huge challenge now that, can I actually... No, I did A-level English literature, and when I did it, we studied 1984 in some depth.
Oh, yes.
And that was before 1984, but we've gone past that, and people thought, it never happened. Oh, yes, it has. And we're now here with it. So I think we're at a strange place in human existence where we need to, and I have been reading quite a lot about the whole ideas of, what will happen when the AI actually is more intelligent than us? What happens to us as speakers when all the information is available? What do I deliver as a speaker that you cannot get from AI? And that's the question we all have to be asking. What can I deliver that will help you and develop you that you cannot get by going on ChatGPT or Gemini?
And I think that's the emotional side, but that's a whole different podcast, I think.
It is.
So Rikki, this has been really deep. I feel we could keep going for hours, but I think we should start about wrapping up. So last question I'd like to ask you is, what is your favorite story to end on? And I know the story you're going to tell, so at least we're going to finish on a very positive note. I'll leave that to you to share.
So, yes. Yeah. I learned lots and lots of different stories along the way. I have time to tell you two.
Okay, go for it.
I'm going to tell you two because I actually quite like. I often use poetry or use my own stories, but I find often when I'm closing a speech that I will use a specific moral type story that particularly helps me to get it across. And there are two that I regularly use. One, I'm going to finish with, but I'll tell you the other one because it was a brilliant story that I learned first in 1974 on a personal development course called Mind Dynamics.
Oh yeah,
and it was just simply that there was a story about an old farmer. They're all American stories because it was American. An old farmer who decided he's going to give up his farm and he's going to retire, and so he called in his foreman, and he said, "Look, I tell you what, I'm going to happen." He said, "I'm packing it and selling the farm. I'm really sorry about that because you've been with me for all these years. So what I'm going to do is, the farmer said, I'm going to give you $5,000, and I want you to do what you can with that $5,000. I'm going off on a world, on a bit of a tour and a bit of a break from everything. When I get back in a year's time, we'll get together and we'll see, what you've done with the money, and all the profit you made, you can keep it. So he said, oh, right, off he went. So a year later, he got back. He said, well, what did you do with my money? He says, well, farmer, I got to tell you, I had one hell of a time. So I ain't never had that much money in all my entire life, and I just went for it. He says, wine and women and booze. I went for it. I had the most amazing time. I slept in the best hotels. I slept with the best women. And then I suddenly one day woke up and discovered that I was flat, stony broke. I did not have a cent left to my name. So I went off and I was walking down the street and I saw a big house and I knocked on the door and I said, look, can you help me? I don't have any money, but I'm prepared to work if you will give me some work. And they said, well, actually, we do need somebody. It turned out this was a house of ill repute. And they said, we need someone to keep our books and manage those. And they said, well, farmer, as you know, I ain't never got around to learn to read and write. And I told them, they said, well, we can't really help you, but, we'll give you a bed for the night. And in the morning, as I was leaving, they gave me two of the biggest apples I've ever seen. I was walking down the street. Somebody said, hey, what a great apple. I said, I'll give you $1 for that. And somebody else bought the other one. I said, this is really great. I took that $2, went back and bought a basket of apples. Set up a little fruit store selling fruit. He said it went so well. He said I set this whole thing up and was selling fruit and vegetables, making quite a bit of money. He said, so I got somebody else to run another one. He said, to cut a long story short, I eventually ended up with 25 of these stores running all across the county. I had them all valued at $25,000 the whole lot. And that's how much I made. The farmer said, that is brilliant. So you keep the $5,000 I gave you for have a good time. He said, go have a good time. Now, this apparently was the story of the start of the A&P empire. And many years later, this guy was finally selling up the whole store chain, and the contract was placed in front of him for $1 billion contract, and he signed it with a cross. And the lawyer looked at him, he said, what's that? He said, that's my marks.
Because he never learned to read and write.
You have built a multi-billion-dollar empire, and you cannot even read and write? My God, just think where you'd be today if you could read and write. He said, son, I know where I'd be. I'd be an accountant in a whorehouse.
That's hilarious. I love that story. That's such a good story.
And I just love telling that because it was all about the fact, it's not about how much you know. It's not about all your knowledge. It's simply about your ability to grasp opportunities and deal with them. But then the other story came from one of my favorite speakers back in the time when I was a life insurance industry was Norman Levine. Norman Levine was an agent, life insurance agent, general agent. He'd moved from New York to California, and set up a whole. It literally start from scratch, and became very, very successful. And he was over speaking in the UK, and he told the story that he'd got from somewhere else. I've tracked it down. And again, another story. It always ends up being stories about farmers. So we've got this old farmer who was a seed corn farmer, and the seed corn farmer's job is he grows the seed, the corn, not to eat, but to create the seed that will be used by the other farmers to grow corn for the next year. And we're talking about maize, sweet corn. So every year he would submit his corn into the great local trade fairs, and every year he won the Blue Ribbon Award, the award for the best seed corn in the county. And then he did something surprising. He went off and he gave the best of his seed corn to all his neighbors, made sure that they all had good corn. And a journalist found out about this and went off to see me. He said, I don't understand what you win this award every year. And then you go and give your best corn to all of your neighbors, your competitors. Why don't you keep the best corn for yourself? And then you'll always be the best. He says, son, you just don't understand farming, do you? You don't understand cross-fertilization. See, because if I have the best corn in the county here on my farm, but all around me is poor quality corn, that's going to cross-fertilize when the winds blow, and it will reduce the quality of mine, so that no matter how hard I work, I will always have mediocre corn. But if I make sure that all around me is the best corn in the county and I work just a little bit harder, then I will always win the Blue Ribbon Award.
Amen.
What that story taught me was about the cross-fertilization from the people we mix with.
Yeah.
If you surround yourself with the best people, that cross-fertilization, if you work a little bit harder, means that you will become the best. But if you mix yourself in an environment with mediocre, poor quality people, that will cross-fertilize and that will impact and bring you down.
Absolutely. What a beautiful story to finish on. Rikki, thank you so much for your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience, your time, everything you've brought to this. Of course, if you want to be judged, for one better word, by Rikki, feel free to enter the Speaker Awards this year, speakerawards.com. If you want to connect with Rikki, we will put their details, but it's Rikki Arundel. There's only one, as Rikki pointed out. You can find them on LinkedIn, or the website is the same, rikkiarundel.com, is it?
No, the best. Well, that will take you to my LinkedIn profile, speakersacademy.com.
Speakersacademy.com. So feel free to reach out and share whatever you want to share with Rikki. Any final last words, Rikki, before you say?
No, just say, I mean, best things, connect with me on LinkedIn is probably the easiest thing, because that's a personal connection. I do connect with everybody, and and I'll keep in touch through there. So it's really good. No, I just think, just make sure you put your best work into this competition. Don't think, oh, I'll just stick anything in. Make this your best piece of work, because that raises the standard for everybody. And I wish you all the best of luck. I look forward to seeing those brilliant stories and TEDx talk.
Amazing, Rikki. Thank you. Everybody that's watched all the way through, thank you. Feel free to reach out with any questions. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Elliot Kay, or of course via the website. Look forward to your entries coming in. Have a lovely rest of the day, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Front Row Podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment. It's through your feedback that we grow. We hope you've taken lots of notes, benefited from the wisdom, and are now going to turn everything into action. Remember to keep an eye out for our next episode of the Front Row Podcast. And remember to like, subscribe, and of course leave us a 5-star review. We look forward to connecting with you and hearing the progress of your journey in the professional speaking world. Tune in next time for the Front Row Podcast.